Chapter 5 deals with price controls. The two main price controls that we're going to look at are the price ceiling and the price floor. The price ceiling essentially sets a legal maximum on the price at which a good could be sold, whereas a price floor, it's a legal minimum. To illustrate this, we're going to go through an example to see how it applies and when it actually has an impact, this price ceiling and price floor. And we could see afterwards different examples where this actually takes place in practice. Price ceiling, if we think of different examples, it could deal with certain foods or sometimes rent in certain municipalities. Whereas a price floor could deal with certain things such as minimum wage and the price of milk or other things like that. So we're going to go through those later on. So just to understand how this process works, we just have a basic table here, which gives us a price, quantity demand, and the quantity supplied. And from chapter 3, you should be able to answer at what price would we be in equilibrium. Well, in equilibrium, we are always in a situation where quantity supplied is equal to quantity demanded. So in equilibrium, we would be at $1 would be our price, and the quantity demanded, quantity sold would be 40 cents, because either above or below this equilibrium, we would be in a situation where quantity supplied is greater than quantity demand, or the other way around. And in that situation, market forces would bring us back towards this equilibrium. We're going to see, though, with the price floor or price ceiling, this situation may not always be the case. So the first question I'm going to ask here is, what would be the case if I had a price ceiling? Let's say a price ceiling of $2. Okay. What would be the situation here if I had a price ceiling of $2? What would happen to my quantity demanded and my quantity supplied? What would happen to the price and so on and so forth? Would I have a shortage or a surplus? Take a second to think about it. I've gone through this example many times in class in the past. And when you notice a price ceiling of $2, a lot of people would look over here and they would say, well, at a price ceiling of $2, there would be 20 units demanded, 80 units supplied. So only 20 units would be purchased, and so on and so forth. So we would have an excess supply or a surplus. However, the thing that you have to tell yourself here is that at a price ceiling of $2, essentially what you're saying is that the price cannot go above $2. This is my limit. This is the maximum it could be at. Okay? But currently, our supply and demand has an equilibrium point where the price is actually not $2, it's actually $1. Therefore, this current equilibrium price that we have of $1 is not impacted by a price ceiling of $2, because you're saying with a price ceiling of $2, the price cannot go above $2. This is the legal maximum at which it could go. Therefore, in this situation, since this is my legal maximum and I have not surpassed this legal maximum at $1 right now, I would be in a situation where things would just keep on going as usual in the past, and this price ceiling would not be binding. So if there is no impact, if we say that there is no impact from this price ceiling, what you might see as well in the literature is we say it's not binding. Okay. Binding, you could think about it as someone who has their wrist attached to one another, they're binded together, and it's something that limits your options. You're limited by this kind of like legal maximum. However, in this case, we're not limited by it for now, because the price is not set at a price that is beyond this price ceiling. Okay, so now let's look at the situation where the price ceiling is set below this current market equilibrium price. Okay, it's set below this market equilibrium price of $1. Well, let's say we have the situation that we set a price ceiling of 50 cents. Well, in this case here, if this were the new price ceiling, I would be in a situation such as before. I like to draw these little arrows because this tells me that this price, this graph is maybe not to scale, but this price of 50 cents is the maximum. So it has to be anywhere along here or below it for this to respect the law that has been established. So in this case here, when I have a price ceiling of 50 cents, I now have a situation where I could see that my current equilibrium is not in the direction that these arrows are going in. So it's not possible, it's not feasible, it's not allowed. We cannot charge $1 anymore. So what's gonna happen at 50 cents? Well, I have quantity demanded of 50, quantity supplied of 20. So this is my quantity supplied, 20, my quantity demanded of 50. Therefore, what do I have? Well, my supply is smaller than my demand. I have what we call excess demand. And excess demand may also be called a situation where I have a shortage. People would like to consume more than is currently available at the going price of 50 cents. This would be the situation. Therefore, in this situation, we have a binding price ceiling. We have a price ceiling that has an impact on supply and demand. And in that specific situation, we have less goods exchange. The thing that we have to remember here from any price control that you'll notice, any of them, you'll have a situation that the price control will either have no impact on the current equilibrium before installing this price control. If it is not binding, it has no impact. Or if it has any impact whatsoever, we will always notice that the total quantity exchange, let's say this was my total quantity exchange in the past, once I implement a price ceiling or price floor that is binding, I'm always going to be exchanging less. As in this case here, I will always be exchanging less because even though consumers are willing to demand that quantity, if suppliers are not willing to supply it, there is no transaction, there is no trade happening. Therefore, every time we implement a price control, it essentially limits the amount of exchange possible. It adds some form of distortion to the economy. And we will discuss the potential problems that this distortion may bring.